Mr. President, I rise today to speak about the tragic passing of a 7-year-old child, Jakelin Caal, on December the 8th of this year. Jakelin died in Custom and Border Patrol custody, reportedly due to shock and dehydration. It is an understatement to say that we need a thorough and independent investigation to understand exactly what happened in this case and to make sure it never happens again. Jakelin entered Custom and Border Patrol custody and was held with her father overnight with about 160 migrants, nearly half of whom were minors, at Antelope Wells Border Station. Custom and Border Protection has stated that food and water were made available, but the child's father and news articles have stated that water was not available. It's not visible from a distance, but I'll just hold up a story and a headline from today's Washington Post. Headline reads, "Lawyers, no water provided to migrant who died." Here's what the first paragraph of this Washington Post story dated today says. Dateline from El Paso. 7-year-old Jakelin Caal and her father, Neri, were not provided water during the 8 hours they were held in a remote Border Patrol facility with 161 other migrants, the family's lawyers said Wednesday, contradicting statements from U.S. Customs and Border Protection. And the story goes on from there. Similarly, and I'm getting back, not in the text of the article now, just getting back to my observations of this, though health screenings were reportedly conducted, news reports indicate that none of the agents on duty had advanced medical training. Though the father signed a DHS form I-779, which is a juvenile medical, entitled Juvenile Medical Screening, and he apparently also signed other medical paperwork, there are questions as to whether he understood the form itself. I believe it's critical that we evaluate this form and also evaluate the medical screening that children undergo. I'd like to know, and I'm sure many Americans would like to know, whether the American Academy of Pediatrics and our nation's medical professionals believe that the current system is adequate. And I would add that when this form and other procedures or protocols were put in place, were those experts like the American Academy of Pediatrics, were they consulted? Was this process or the form, or forms plural, informed by the expertise that's available? That's another set of questions. This has to be about improving the conditions at our Border Patrol stations to make sure that they're safe, and that includes, of course, ensuring that there is sufficient food, water, and medical attention at every one of these Border Patrol stations. And if that means that the administration comes forward to the Senate or the House in the appropriations process to have more dollars appropriated for this purpose, not just general appropriations, but for this purpose, to make sure that food and water and appropriate medical attention is available and trained medical professionals are available at every Border Patrol or at every Border Patrol station, we should make sure that we engage in a dialogue about such specific appropriations. Understanding what happened in this tragedy is not about assigning blame. That's easy. That happens all the time in Washington. This shouldn't be one of those instances. This is about fixing the problem so it never happens again. And it's also about making sure that our policy and the procedures that surround this policy and the details of the policy and the resources dedicated to it are not just correct, but that these policies are consistent with our values. So therefore, we need an expeditious, thorough, and independent investigation. We're told that the Inspector General is reviewing this. That's good, but that report has to be done expeditiously, and we have to get to the bottom of what happened to this 7-year-old child. In addition to all of that, debates about how to improve the system, how to investigate what happened, how to have recommendations on the record to improve these policies. We also need Commissioner Kevin Maquin and Secretary Nielsen to testify before Congress so they can provide testimony about what happened here and about what both of them and their agencies are doing to make sure this never happens again. Finally, we must take a moment to think about the broader atmosphere and the policies that relate to our border. Those who come to our shores seeking asylum are often fleeing terrible conditions of violence and poverty, in some cases almost indescribable horror that they're fleeing from. All those seeking asylum should have a fair opportunity to present their claims and should not be subjected to unhealthy, unsanitary, or unsafe conditions while their claims are processed. It's entirely possible to have an immigration system that treats all individuals with compassion and dignity while also securing the border and protecting national security. None of that is internally inconsistent. A great nation can do all of that, and I'm certain that our nation is capable of that. We must come together as a nation to mourn the loss of Jakelin and others who die under similar circumstances. We need to put politics aside to fix our broken immigration system so that these policies are consistent with our American values. Mr. President, I would yield the floor and note the absence of a quorum.